Hello and welcome. I'm Vidar Pratap Singh. A video circulating on social media shows the final moments of Dipu Chandra Das, the 25-year-old Hindu garment worker, lynched by a mob in Maiman Singh's Bhaluka area on 18 December. The post states that it's Das pleading for his life while being escorted by police, criticizing the officer's apparent lack of empathy and slamming Bangladesh's interim government led by Nobel laureate Mohammad Yunus for a mere statement on the incident. The footage depicts riot-geared police leading a distressed man in a dark blue shirt through a chaotic nighttime crowd. He appears to be gesturing emphatically, speaking animatedly, possibly in protest or plea, and at one point using a phone. Now, new information has revealed that investigators have found no evidence of blasphemy, the initial rumor that triggered the mob. Instead, authorities say it stemmed from a workplace dispute at Pioneer Knitwear, where co-workers allegedly spread false rumors over a possible promotion or grudge. Das was dragged from the factory, brutally beaten, tied to a tree, stripped and set on fire. Police blamed the factory for delaying their alert, while management claims they tried to protect him. At least 12 arrests have been made, with more operations underway. Das's family has filed a case against 140 to 150 people, demanding the death penalty and compensation. Joining us live at this point is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat. Also with us, Major General Dhruv Katoch, defense expert. Rashmi Samant, author and activist, joins us live. Pramit Pal Chaudhary, South Asia head, Eurasia Group, also with us on the broadcast. Let me make a start with you first, Ambassador Sikri. What do you make of the aftermath of this horrific crime in Bangladesh? The token condemnation and the action that has followed. Are you satisfied, or is much more needed to protect minorities' rights in our neighborhood?
There is nothing to be satisfied about, because we have to all recall that from 5th of August last year, from the minute Sheikh Hasina's plane left Bangladesh, the first target of attack has been the Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Sufis and Ahmadiyya minorities. And the targets it was so vicious and so violent that even 4 days later, when Prime Minister Modi sent the first message of felicitation to Mohammad Yunus, in that very message he mentioned about what's happening to the minorities and about the need to look after them. So it just shows that how this, from zero to an absolute escalation level in 4 days, it's continued after that. It hasn't stopped. For the last 18 months it hasn't stopped. But Mohammad Yunus is totally dismissive so far. I've seen so many interviews of his, especially those given when he's in the Western countries, in New York most recently in September, and when he's asked about the violence against the Hindus, he flays his hand and says, oh, fake news from India. So he has been in complete denial, but we know of all the rape, the lynchings, the killings, the burning of homes, the grabbing of properties, the destruction of businesses, forcing Hindu primary teachers and Hindu professors surrounded by a mob, forcing them to resign from their jobs. It is a terrible situation, but it is the minorities themselves who have said that this time we are not leaving the country. We want to stay, we are citizens, we want our rights. And in fact, Chinmoy Das had made a very simple list of 8 demands that he wanted from the Mohammad Yunus government. But as a result, he's been thrown in jail for more than 1 year, no charges filed, no bail given. Completely in custody. So this time, Dipu Chandra Das, yes, you're right, it was a completely barbaric medieval act. It was nothing less than that, with hundreds of people taking on the mobile phone the act of beating him to death, the act of taking him to the stake and burning his dead body and then throwing the body on the highway. Imagine nobody stopped to protest. And this so-called claim of blasphemy has been made hundreds of times before. Every time they want to do something against a minority, a Hindu, a Buddhist or a Christian, they do this. I remember in Rama, on the Buddhist temples, how it was used, and 400-year-old Buddhist structures were brought to the ground, or burnt to the ground. So I think that just because this time Mohammad Yunus has said that 7 people have been arrested, there is no guarantee, because in the past he said so, or his administration said so once or twice. They were all released on bail, no FIRs filed, no charges made, and this time there's an absolute guarantee the same thing will be done. So I think that it is such a tragedy that the cruel death of Dipu Chandra Das, and compare it to what happened with Usman Hadi. Usman Hadi, who was not even known since last year. He only known in July, August last year. A person known only primarily for his anti-Indian statements. Inkilab Munch, he wanted Islamic rule, and his killing has not only brought, Muhammad Yunus to tears and hagiographic accounts, and he's been buried next to poet Qazi Nazrul Islam, national poet in the graveyard of Qazi Nazrul Islam. And I must say that the Western countries have absolutely, without, I don't know, unless they knew him from before, but in the last 18 months, all his anti-India rhetoric, the German embassy lowered their flag to half-mast. The Americans and some others have issued, deep, deep condolences, and it has become like somebody who has fought for the liberation of the country or something like that. I cannot understand what is happening in Bangladesh today, the sharply contrasting reactions and the evidence that all they want in Bangladesh is an Islamist Wahhabi government, and they do not want the Awami League to take part in the elections. I think our government has been completely correct to insist on free, fair, participatory and inclusive elections. Only then will they be credible, because otherwise in Bangladesh, the unrest, the instability, the insecurity, the violence, they will all continue. It's happened in the past many times when you have non-representative elections, then there's violence, and we remember in 1991 when the elections were held, then in 96 when the elections were held, that is when there was complete violence, and the elections had to be reheld after passing the caretaker government bill in government. So this time, even though there is an interim regime sworn in on a constitution when does not allow for an interim regime, but this interim regime has done nothing to hold elections in a free, fair and inclusive manner. In fact, they did their
Yes.
best, say, reforms first, and 4 years
Yes.
later elect.
Okay. Let me also join Major Katoch at this point. Major Katoch, now this, of course, is these fresh twists, of course, coming in with regards to the investigation, even as the family continues to put pressure, even as, the world also finally begins to focus on what is transpiring within Bangladesh, although simply not enough. The family, of course, is demanding death penalty. The family is demanding much more action. Do you believe these are simply token gestures, token condemnation, token steps? What do you make of the follow-up of this horrific killing?
Thank you, Uday. Uday, what the government of Bangladesh is doing is sheer whitewashing the criminality which has taken place. All these people arrested will be released in due course of time. Just let the time pass. So this is something which they are trying to put band-aid on a situation which has gone beyond control. And what I mean to say is this: there are two forces being applied now. One is from within Bangladesh, the Jamaat has taken over. The Jamaat is not in a majority in Bangladesh. They have just about 10 to 15%, maybe even less. But they control the 80 or 90% of the population. That population has become servile, and they've lost the power to resist. And the second is the very great democratic West. The people who talk of values and democracy and human rights, they have always abused human rights and democracy when it comes to the altar of their self-interest and their geopolitical interests. The West geopolitical interests are being played out in Bangladesh at the blood of the Bengalis, at the blood of 1971. Uday.
Yes, indeed. Let me, in fact, quickly take that to you as well, Rashmi Samant, on, of course, the steps taken so far, what you make of these pattern of events, which is only becoming, unfortunately, too common now in Bangladesh. And so far, the global response, muted, but finally murmurs. Is more expected? Will it come or not?
Uday, I think thanks to social media, we do have videos of what really happened. If this happened in the past where smartphones weren't as plenty, I don't think there would have been any outrage. I think the muted murmurs that we're hearing of the condemnation is only because there is evidence that one cannot deny. The sort of heartlessness with which he was dragged, he was hanged, and he was burnt alive. I think that video exists, that entire video exists, and that's why there's muted murmurs of sympathy that he's getting now. But I think, as I think the panelists said before me, all of the measures, the so-called arresting of perpetrators. I mean, who do you arrest when it's a mob? And the mob is endemic of the entire regime. So if at all there needs to be an arrest, the arrests have to go all the way up to the top to Yunus, who is enabling this kind of mobocracy to, go on unchecked within Bangladesh. So where does the buck stop? I think in cases of mob lynching, you really can't arrest people because it's an entire mob, it's an entire sentiment, and it's only possible if the regime of the day supports it. So I think there is absolutely no accountability when it comes to the injustice that Deepu's faced, his young family, his young daughter, his young wife have faced. My own heart goes out to them as to what their plight might be in that country. If a man is treated like that, I only think how will a woman be treated? Because we know how women, Hindu women, were treated in the past, especially during the Durga Puja riots that happened a few years ago. On similar grounds, every time they want to go after Hindus, they come up with false blasphemy charges. It's an old playbook. It happens everywhere. It's happened in Pakistan. It's happened in Bangladesh before. It's happening again. A few arrests are made and they're let go of. We know how during the Durga Puja time back in 2023, I think the perpetrators were in fact enabled by the police. You could see the police actually directing them to Hindu homes. There are videos, abundant videos in Twitter. So how do you expect such law enforcement to then go back and deliver justice? It's just a fairy tale to expect any kind of justice. And Yunus is enabled by the Western ecosystem to sort of become the kind of problem that Bangladesh is turning to be. He was put in his place exactly so that Bangladesh could descend into this madness and become another Pakistan, another thorn by the side of India. So I think with all of these conditions, the only outlet that these poor Hindus have is in fact, if India takes them in fact, if we pass CAA, that's the only way they're going to have any respite. Otherwise, I think
Yes.
it's just another, it's just countdown to.
Pramitpal Chaudhary, what more is expected, to be done by the world at large? What more can India do to speak up and to draw focus on Bangladesh to ensure that this doesn't happen with anyone else? It's happened with Dipu Das. That's terrible enough. We need to ensure his perpetrators are brought to book. But we need to ensure this doesn't recur and recur as we are seeing it happen, unfortunately, in Bangladesh.
Yeah, so I think, look, the point is that it should be kept in mind that Bangladesh, even under Sheikh Hasina, saw steady discrimination against the Hindu minorities. It wasn't necessarily violent, but even in the past, it was very common for if a Hindu had a lawsuit over land against a Muslim in Bangladesh, you could be almost guaranteed that the Hindu would lose. You saw Hindu land being taken, property taken. I know this partly because of my own family experienced this even in over the past 20, 30 years. The remnants of my family that stayed back after the partition. That was basically built into the system. Now, of course, with Sheikh Hasina being removed and the interim government in place, we're now seeing violence take place. We're seeing it a much more open, and as the other speakers have mentioned, a much more rabid anti-minority, not just against Hindus, but also against Christians and Buddhists. And this we now have to see, partly because I would expect this to continue, possibly increase between now and the elections in February. The question then after February is when we see, at least going by the polling that we have seen both publicly and private polls that I'm familiar with, we expect the Bangladesh National Party to come to power with about 200 seats versus the Jamaat 60 or to 80. The death of Hadi will help Jamaat in this election, so that may change a bit. But the arrival of Tariq Rahman, the head of the BNP, coming in December 25th, just a few days from now, should help balance that a bit. The question for the BNP, though, it is the pro-business party in many ways. It has worked out its understandings with the Indian government is to basically, the argument has to be made to them, not just through us, but hopefully other governments. I think Japan in particular is one we need to work with. They're the biggest ODA contributor and a very large FDI contributor to the Bangladeshis, and are basically very closely aligned with us on how to handle Bangladesh or consult with us to basically say, look, you have to make a call here. If you allow this Islamic stuff, the violence on the streets, law and order to continue beyond a certain level, then your hopes to create a diversified Bangladesh economic story that Sheikh Hasina created more than anybody else will be lost for you, because you're not going to be able to build an economy beyond garment exports, and those garment exports have shrunk dramatically, partly because of the violence and instability that you have shown. So you have to make a call as to where you want to take Bangladesh on this front. It's not just about the question of its Bengali character versus its Islamic character, but it is also about its economic prosperity. And you have been an economic success story. And will you be, as the BNP, if you come to power, you have to make a call on this front. And that's, I think, the message we're going to have to send. And it's a message you also can do by talking to big companies. These giant corporations that buy apparel from Bangladesh are now going to be wondering what's going on there. I definitely get questions. My company, Eurasia Group, works with many of them. What's the future? Because we need long-term stability for us to be able to continue to invest and buy from Bangladesh. And several hundred garment factories have already shut down there. And that's the kind of message we need to. They have to feel the pinch on the penny front, and we have to work with certain countries, notably Japan, I think, in trying to get that message through.
You know, the fact also, though, is, Major Katoch, the worry is that, this violence will continue and increase perhaps with the elections approaching in Bangladesh as well next year. How will we then ensure the safety of the minorities? And one wonders what steps the Yunus administration will take to ensure the safeties of Hindus and minorities within Bangladesh as the elections inch closer and closer.
Very frankly, Uday, I don't think they're in the police, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, they're going to keep quiet. The army is going to turn the other way. I think Bangladesh, this violence will continue, and the violence will be directed at three people. One is the media. They don't want the media to report anything against the Jamaat. So they will be one of the prime targets. The second will be the Awami League supporters. And the third are the minorities, especially the Hindu community. And there is no particular order, but these three will continue to be targeted, at least in my view, up to 15th or 20th of January. That is for the next 20 to 30 days. After that, I have a feeling, it is my assessment, that Yunus will call off the elections. As Pramit has very rightly pointed out, the Jamaat is not going to win. If the BNP wins, that is not what the Yunus government wants, and he will be held accountable. So he will have this postponed. This election, in my view, is not going to take place. This violence will continue, and I think it is very, very bad days for Bangladesh ahead because their civil society is not fighting back. And I haven't understood why they aren't fighting back. There is absolutely no resistance on the ground. And unless they come up onto the streets and say, you will not do this, I'm afraid the Jamaat has won, the Islamists have won, Pakistan has won. As Niazi said many years ago, 50 years ago, he made that statement in 1971. He told them, "Inki aulad badli kar do." He gave them a sanction for rape to change the entire lineage. 55 years later, they have succeeded. And that is the Pakistani victory, which I'm seeing today. Uday.
Absolutely. It should concern us because this is happening in our neighborhood, isn't it, Ambassador Sikri? It concerns us because, of course, our sympathies are with the family of Dipu Das, but our fear is for the Hindu community and the minorities within Bangladesh. But it concerns us, the security implications of this violence and increasing crime, because this is our neighbor. Ambassador Sikri.
Absolutely, it does concern us. There's a major security threat, there's a major instability threat, and I am not at all sanguine about the elections. I think that perhaps what General Dhruv is saying could happen, that elections will be postponed, but I certainly don't see the BNP coming to power at all, because for two reasons. First of all, I think there has been some kind of a deal between all of them. You know, Mohammed Yunus was in London in the month of June, he met Tariq Rahman, and the deal said that, okay, Mohammed Yunus will become president. That is his ultimate ambition. He wants to become president. He wants more presidential powers in the new constitution. In the July Charter already it's mentioned. And he will be immune for any prosecution for all that he has done with Grameen Bank. Second, even if the BNP is declared, at one point I said, yes, Tariq Rahman will become prime minister. Then said, okay, maybe Khalida Zia, but now she's so unwell. Maybe Tariq Rahman. But the deputy prime minister is to be the Amir of the Jamaat-e-Islami. So I think if you look at the deputy prime minister as Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami and the president as Yunus, who has been speaking on behalf of Jamaat-e-Islami for the last 18 months as their mouthpiece, I don't think there's any chance for anybody else. Even the IRI survey, the International Republican Institute survey of national opinion, which was released fairly recently in Bangladesh and other places on their website, they have now said that there's very little difference between the support for Jamaat and the support for BNP. You know, they've said that BNP has 33%, but Jamaat has 29%, 4 percentage points less, but they have given 6% to the NCP, and they have given some to the other Islamist parties. So if you put all of that together, there's every sign of NCP joining hands with the Jamaat and making a coalition there. You will find that the Jamaat has the upper hand. And besides, in any case, I think one has to also realize that the BNP today is a split party. There is one faction which is pro-liberation war and values, they value the memory of General Ziaur Rahman, who was a big. That itself is today under a question mark. But let's see. Even if it happens, let us see what happens. But I think that one has to be very much more cynical about what is happening in Bangladesh, because there is complete cynicism at work over there in terms of the reaction of the West, in terms of the support. Why are they supporting a non-elected regime? Why are they saying it has power? Why is the election going to be held without participation of Awami League? In Sri Lanka, when there was a regime change operation, the Rajapaksa government, extremely unpopular, brought down. Were the Rajapaksa party prevented from participating in the next elections? Of course not. They took part and they lost votes, but that's fine. That's quite okay. So why in Bangladesh the special reason for just because they think about it is a threat?
Yes. Okay. I'm afraid we've run out of time, so I'm going to have to leave it at that. My thanks to our guests for joining us. We're slipping into a very short break.
आपके घर के खाने में